Hello everybody, this is TJR. Last year, when season 1 of The Boys premiered on Amazon Prime, I made a video entitled, Is The Boys the New Watchmen? And in that video, I drew a comparison between the Watchmen graphic novel by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, published back in the 80s, and this new series entitled The Boys. Back when The Watchmen was released in the 80s, it was, among other things, a revisionist commentary on the last 40-some years of the superhero genre in comic books. And I really felt that The Boys was, in many respects, a revisionist commentary on the last 10 years of the superhero genre in movies, and in particular, the last 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Basically saying that what The Watchmen was to the genre of superhero comics, The Boys was to the genre of superhero movies. So when season 2 was released last week, I figured I would wait until all of the series could be watched, and then I would comment on it. But last Friday, with episode 4, this series made a commentary that I felt summed up everything that is wrong about our current internet and media culture. And I felt like I had to comment on it now. So first, I'm going to assume that if you are watching this video, you are already up to speed on the last 4 episodes and you don't need me to sum it up for you. Second, if you are not familiar with this show, and I really can't understand why you'd be watching if you are not familiar with it, all I have to say is spoilers ahead. Now, at the beginning of season 2, we are introduced to a new character called Stormfront, who's going to be the next member of the Seven, this show's version of the Justice League. And for you comic book fans out there, I want to give full disclosure here. I have never read the actual source material for this series, but I have read a lot about this series, and I do know all the major reveals from the comic book series. So I want to let you know, I am aware already that in the comics, Stormfront is a male character. So before you start screaming about gender swapping or gender diversity or diversity inclusion, I just want to say, hang tight, I'm going to get to that. And so when we are introduced to this new character, we are immediately made aware of her mastery of social media and how she uses it to increase her public profile, to create followers, and to be an internet influencer. Now I'm going to make a quick comparison. Remember Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four? He has these super stretching powers, like the 1940 superhero character Plastic Man. But his real power is his scientific mind. Stormfront has superpowers too, and very deadly ones to be sure. But her real power is her ability to use social media to create not just fans, not just followers, and not just to increase her public presence and popularity, all of which she is able to do, but most of all, to create ardent followers who implicitly and seemingly unquestionably trust her. Now, how does she do this? I'm going to get to that in a moment. By the end of the first 3 episodes, which were all aired the previous week, it is clear that she has her sights set on making herself more popular than Homelander, who is the current leader of the Seven, and with the intention of taking Homelander's place as the leader of the Seven. She has also demonstrated that she is willing to bite the hand that feeds her. I'm referring to the Vought Company. And while the Vought Company is a despicable corporate organization, Stormfront is not opposing Vought for any altruistic reasons. She is doing it for personal gain. Homelander, who is the show's Superman and a real jerkwad, sees what she is doing, and he confronts her about this. He tells her, I know what you're trying to do, that she's trying to take over the Seven and replace him. And her response to him on this is the really telling and insightful moment in this episode that I have been building towards. She states to him, you don't need 50 million people to love you. You just need 5 million people who are pissed off. And then she says 2 words, anger sells. And with those two words, anger sells, she has, to me, summed up what is so wrong with our current internet and media culture. I'm going to say right now, I don't care if you are left-leaning or right-leaning. I don't care if you are liberal or conservative, Republican or Democrat. The media that you feel supports your point of view is also trying to manipulate you as well. And the reason they are is summed up in the two words Stormfront says to Homelander. Anger sells. Give people an enemy and give them a reason to fear that enemy. And keep reminding them of this and keep them pissed off at the other side. Keep them pissed off at the enemy. Keep doing this over and over again. And pretty soon, you don't just have followers anymore. You have soldiers. And Stormfront tells Homelander exactly that.
You have fans. I have soldiers.
This is exactly the tactic that Hitler used to get people to follow him. And I see these same tactics maybe amped down a little bit, but I do see them used by media pundits in the political spectrum on the internet and in more traditional broadcast media such as radio and TV. I have seen whole careers and livelihoods based around this simple communication tactic. Anger sells, negativity sells, and it is very profitable. A good example is Alex Jones. He is an extreme example, yes, but he used this tactic to make a ton of money, not just from advertising revenue from his videos, but from all the products he was selling that you were going to need if you were going to survive his many conspiracy theories about the US government and the coming apocalypse. And also from private backers and patrons who supported his efforts because they believed in him. They were his soldiers. And one of his soldiers believed in his ludicrous truths so much that they went into a pizza store armed with a gun. And not too long after this incident, Alex Jones found himself in the middle of a court custody case, claiming that he was too unstable to be a father. His online activities clearly being part of this case. And so therefore, via his lawyer, he stated that all of the truths that he broadcasts are nothing more than performance art. This is an extreme example, yes, I admit it, but the internet is full of much more subtle variations on this. And not just in the political spectrum, mind you. I have seen YouTube channels dedicated to the continuous loop cycle of bashing either a group of people, an ideology, or an entity. And it doesn't even have to involve race, politics, or religion. For instance, I have seen YouTube channels devoted to continuous loop cycles of videos telling you that you must hate the Walt Disney Company and everything they do or touch because they ruined Star Wars for us. Or telling you that you need to be angry at gender swapping or race swapping or diversity inclusion in your favorite comic book TV and movie adaptations because it's ruining them. You know, there might actually be very good reasons why the showrunners on The Boys decided to change Stormfront from a man to a woman that will make really good sense for the story once it is completed, but we're not going to know until the end. And you shouldn't get outraged over it till you've seen all the cards on the table. But still, most people have a habit of reacting with outrage first, without hearing or judging all of the facts first. And quite frankly, it's hard to do that when you are only listening to what your side wants you to hear. Now, I'm an old guy here on the internet, and I've been around since before the internet. And I'll be honest, I have been hearing about the liberal media long before the internet. And while I am personally very progressive in some of, but not all of my personal and political beliefs, I acknowledge that there are kernels of truth to the whole liberal media accusation. But here's the thing. The moment you let someone else tell you that you can't trust what the other side is saying and that you can only trust us, you leave yourself open to manipulation. And before you know, the side you trust, can start telling you that the moon is made of green cheese, and you will either have to believe it or you will have to modify or change your worldview. Now, you might also say to yourself, hey, maybe TJR is trying to manipulate me, and maybe to a certain extent I am. I am trying to plant a seed in your head. I am trying to convince you that no matter what ideological and political side that you walk on, you need to be careful not to let yourself be consumed by a negative media loop, and that you should always leave the door just a little bit ajar to the thought that you and that those whose points of view you follow could be wrong about anything. Media spin, media distortion are huge themes and have been huge themes in The Boys since the very beginning. But I somehow felt that this particular episode summed it up really well. Okay, that was more in depth than I expected to go. So now I just want to talk a little bit about the rest of the episode as a fan. Earlier in episode 4, we find out that Homelander, who has kept another superhuman known as Doppelganger, who has this ability to transform into anybody, is basically keeping this person as, I guess I should call them, a kept superhuman. He's being made available to Homelander as a sex surrogate for the Madeline Stillwell character played by Elizabeth Shue. In the last season, we see that her character was instrumental in keeping Homelander in check by appealing to his sexual desires. But Homelander killed her in the last episode of season 1, so now he has Doppelganger, a supe who can transform his appearance to be anyone as a stand-in for his sexual desires. So Homelander, agitated by his conversation with Stormfront, visits Doppelganger again at the very end of the episode. And when Doppelganger can't basically de-escalate his agitation, he tries a different tactic by appealing to Homelander's narcissism and his love of self. And he transforms himself into a duplicate of Homelander. Now, I need to pause for one brief moment and just state that the other thing that has kept Homelander, this godlike super being, in check has been his need to be adored and loved by the general public, which again feeds into his narcissism. This tactic, however, turning into a carbon copy of Homelander, doesn't work. And Homelander grabs Doppelganger by the throat and says, "You're pathetic," and then kills him. Now, on the surface, you could say Homelander is telling Doppelganger that he is pathetic for trying this and then kills him. But he is also telling that part of himself that seeks adoration, that he, Homelander, is pathetic for needing this adoration. And in effect, he is killing that part of himself by killing Doppelganger, who is hoping to appeal to that part of his personality. So we are left with a very scary ending to this episode. At this point now, the only thing left keeping Homelander in check, the only part of him that still has a connection to any sense of humanity, is his need to have a relationship with his son. At the end of this episode, Homelander has now taken another step closer from sociopathic narcissist to psychopathic monster. And I think it's going to get even scarier as the episodes progress. Looking forward to seeing what happens next. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, if you like what I'm doing, be sure to click a like, click subscribe, and smash that bell notification icon. And if you'd like to show an extra level of support, please consider going to the Patreon page and becoming a Patreon supporter. Patreon supporters receive early access to selected videos and additional blog posts available nowhere else. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.